Okay, whoa. Hi, everyone. Bethany P. Chano here, the internet's busiest music nerd, and it's time for a review of this new Sudan Archives project, the BPM. This record is the third album from producer, singer, rapper, songwriter, multi-instrumentalist, but primarily a violinist extraordinaire, Sudan Archives. Since she dropped her first full-length album on Stone's Throw Records back in 2019, Miss Archives has continued to be one of the most interesting, versatile, and dynamic artists on the label active today. And I feel like that versatility, that all-encompassing vision, that sheer talent is embodied so well on her previous record, Natural Brown Prom Queen. That project dropped in 2022 and was one of my favorite albums of the year, albeit an album that was still very dense, 18 tracks on that motherfucker, but nearly all of them were great, and every single track provided a different angle or blend of alternative R&B and art pop and baroque pop and experimental rap and neo soul and so on and so on and so on. Now, it's been a minute since that project has been released. Things have been kind of quiet on the music front for Sudan Archives, but this entire time I had no doubt in my mind that what was being cooked was going to be nearly as dense and ambitious and all over the place creatively. And the BPM is most definitely that. Really to the point that as I was hearing the singles to this record, many of which I enjoyed, it was really difficult to get a sense of what direction this album was going to be going in, especially when taking into account the wild range between the somewhat tongue-in-cheek, comedic sex raps being thrown out there on Miss Pac-Man versus the smooth, alluring touches of dance and electropop on My Type, a track that's just like this endlessly groovy description and exploration of what, sort of makes Sudan Archives tick romantically. But now the entire record is out, and now that I have the ability to dive into the whole thing, what this record essentially reads as is two different things going on at once, one of which should be pretty obvious from the title, and that is really Sudan Archives, or this project's interpretation or summation of dance music broadly. Because while yes, you continue to get touches of hip-hop and alternative R&B like we have on previous projects, there are more tracks than ever on this record, giving us also, in addition to that, house music, techno, Jersey club, a little UK bass, even one track in particular that hits us with this Irish dance breakdown at one point, which is absolutely nuts and actually goes over well given Sudan Archives' violin chops. So yes, the BPM really is like an ode to numerous eras and styles of dance music in general. But on top of that, topically, many of the songs on this record also explore the concept of love and romance. Some expressions of that are quite sad and heartbreaking. Others are deeply sexy and alluring. And then many more are playful and silly and flirty and, maybe not taking themselves too seriously. Like on a Yeah, more smooth and cerebral number in the track list that's giving some serious K-Tronada vibes. And there are lyrics on this song where Sudan Archives, professes to be able to turn a straight dude bi. Now, this is a 53-minute album with a 15-song track list, a pretty dense one yet again. And when this record is at its best, it's when you're hearing these really creative, unique, one-of-a-kind, everything but the kitchen sink reinterpretations of numerous different dance styles. Take the song Touch Me, for example, a track that at its core really feels like a 2000s era club banger, but then when you actually observe the different bits of percussion and sound effects and touches of instrumentation Sudan Archives chooses to lace this song with, it sounds like a little whacked out, completely deconstructed, but will still very much get you moving despite how quirky and left field it all presents. Also take A Bug's Life, for example, a song that at its core is also very much a hip house track, but given the production and instrumentation packed into it, it's, I promise you, about one of the weirdest hip house tunes you'll ever hear, but still impeccable impeccably catchy and also thoughtful, as the track serves as, part love letter and character portrait too, with a really anthemic hook to boot, topped with the soaring lead vocals. Now, as much as I'm enjoying this record, and I am enjoying it for sure, it's far from a perfect album, and there are moments in which I feel like its ambitions are kind of getting the better of it a little bit in a way. Because not only is there like no real flow or direction to this track list, to the point where it feels like the ending is really losing steam and not knowing exactly how to stick the landing, as Losinsi is like this really awkward, short interlude type moment that feels so out of place. And then the closing track is an attempt at like doing a blissful twist on a Jersey or Philly club beat that I'm not really sure quite works. Add on to that just how much of a sore thumb that Miss Pac-Man feels like, and then the title track, instrumentally and aesthetically, I just kind of read as like a bit of a mangled mess, and I feel like this song really kind of highlights specific issues that I have with particular songs on the record, and that's that this kitchen sink approach, this let's try it all formula Sudan Archives tries to hit some of these songs with. Most of the time, it pans out in lots of thrilling, exciting songs that are quite genre-bending and daring and adventurous. Then on other tracks like The Nature of Power, it just feels like there's so many separate moving parts that it's difficult to get a sense of what it is or what it's trying to do, because there's so little cohesion between all the different passages and changes and reference points. It feels more disorienting than entertaining. And that's the thing. I feel like a really great album is in the mix here, but due to the lack of a cohesive vision and direction for the BPM, there's just a good handful of tracks in this track list that just feel like duds to me. Or, tracks that could have taken more time to develop and grow and introduce some of the many ideas they're trying to pull off. Like, for example, Noire is one of a few tracks on the album that I kind of realized toward the end of the record, for as much as BPM is indebted to dance music, there's so few songs here that have, some of those trademark patient, slow, gradual electronic dance music type progressions and builds, so that getting from point A to point B really feels like a journey, and you feel every change like a step along the way of that journey, as opposed to being overwhelmed with just a collage of different switch-ups and the like. Now again, mind you, not every song on this album is like that. In fact, it's definitely the minority, but it still was enough to make the flow of this album feel kind of inconsistent and a little daunting, especially toward the end. With that being said, though, the BPM is undeniably a creative record. There's not many other electronic dance music albums you're going to hear this year that sound like it or are willing to take so many risks. Plus, it's rare that you hear an artist these days who is just such a fucking multi-talent, who seemingly has so much depth and so much knowledge and also ability, to pull on all of these different sounds and influences and execute them in a way that feels unique and authentic, even if sometimes the end result is a bit cluttered. Which is why I'm essentially feeling a light to decent 7 on this one. Transition, have you given this record a listen? Did you love it? Did you hate it? What would you rate it? You're the best, you're the best. What should I review next? Hit the like if you like. Please subscribe and please don't cry. Hit the bell as well. Over here next to my head is another video that you can check out. Hit that up or the link to subscribe to the channel. Anthony Fantano, Sudan Archives, forever.